will actually record at my normal speaking voice. Because if it doesn't, I don't know if I can put up with this. What's interesting is that, like, I have the car Bluetooth thing, so theoretically, shouldn't I be able to get it so that it uses, like, my car microphone? I'll have to look that up. This is mostly just a test, just the initial test, just to see if it actually wants to record or not, whether or not you can actually hear me, because that's the big thing. So, one of the most snazzy features of my car that I love is that it has a wireless charger built into it. So, there will literally never be video, because I just dropped my phone on the charger. But it's mostly just pointless and somewhat entertaining. If I'm entertaining myself, typically like singing or beatboxing, or the other night I was telling jokes to myself because I'm insane. But yeah, I've always, because I'm crazy, I've always been like, I should record this and at least post it online for me to get no views, so it's kind of pointless. But hey, I've had the thought, so yeah, this is just a test to see whether or not my voice actually works as recording. I'm super sleepy. I'm tired. I was listening to Bill Burr. I love Bill Burr. What I love about Bill Burr specifically is that listening to him, he's so good at convincing your mind that he's about to cross the line. Like, if you're listening to his stand-up, if you're listening to how he communicates, if you're listening to how, for the jokes, right? For the jokes. Like, I listened to his podcast, which was addicting. I'm not even into sports, and I listened to like 2 hours of it just because it was good. It gave me this weird sense of nostalgia, and I don't know really what for. Like, the closest thing I could think of is Car Talk. I want to say it was on NPR. I was not at all invested in it, at all. Like, it was not something I would turn to, but when I was being carted around as a wee bairn, as a small child, my mother and my grandmother would turn to it. Also, I should say that for some strange reason, typically when I'm talking to myself at night, I just drop into random, typically audible accent. So that will happen. If this becomes a thing I do for some fucking unknown reason, aside from ego, what the shit? Isn't it illegal for non-police vehicles to have blue lights in the back? Because that vehicle just went from red to blue to back to red. I think it's a giant truck. I think that's illegal. But yeah, I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, nostalgia. Yeah, so for his comedy bits though, it's brilliant because he tricks your mind, right? Like, how do I say this? We're used to communicating with each other, right? And at least I'm fairly certain that that's illegal. Yeah, it's just blue. For at least how mine works, I obviously am not everyone else, so I can't assume. But at least for how my mind works, and I know other people's, you sort of anticipate the next word that someone's going to say, right? Like you, especially if you're invested in the conversation to some degree. Either you want to get to what you want to say, or you're actually paying attention and you're invested in it. You're following along. You're predicting the next word, the next statement, the next phrase. You're predicting what comes next to some degree of accuracy. What I love about Bill Burr is that, at least for how my mind works, he tricks your prediction software, basically. Like, what theoretically is going to happen is he's going to cross all of the lines and say the most horrendous and horrible thing you can possibly imagine next. And he never does. And that's fascinating. Like, I'm not saying he says good things. He's hilarious. But what I'm saying is, like, he turns left, right? Like, you expect him to say X, and he says Y instead. And Y is not horrible. Like, it's not good, typically, in the context. But it's not that line-crossing thing which would immediately provoke a negative response. And that's super fascinating to me, that's what he does. So what I was listening to, so I found Bill Burr because of Reddit, because that's, where I live. And Reddit loves Bill Burr. I'd never listened to him. I get in these weird periods of time where all I do is consume stand-up comics on Netflix. And one of those periods I was like, all right, let's listen to fucking find Bill Burr, because Reddit loves Bill Burr, so let's go. And he's fucking amazing. I ended up watching like all of his specials. They're great. But what's funny about Bill Burr is basically what I just said, and also he's intense. He's very intense. He's definitely a personality. So what I was doing, because I had also on Reddit, I had heard about his podcast and how his wife gets on there. And so what I found, I'm going to say last night or the night before last, was one of those instances where he's, I guess, doing his podcast and his wife gets on there. And I fucking loved it. I loved it because he's married to a black woman. And how do I say this? She gives him the same shit back. Like, I was always fascinated with the entirety of the content. Because, like I said, he's very intense. He always sounds like he's going to cross the line, but he always turns left. So he's cultivated this sort of persona where the perception of him is less than positive. Could be less than positive, right? So then you're like, and to be honest, like, it could be racist, it could be sexist, it's just all of these things. It's how he comes across. Could be. Note that the operative term there is could be. Not that he is, but that he comes across like the next thing he says is going to be horribly racist, or the next thing he says is going to be horribly sexist. So then you wonder what sort of woman would be married to this man. And specifically because he is of Caucasian descent, what sort of black woman would be married to this man? And as a black person, this was my question. I'm not saying it's something that everyone else would think. I was just personally curious. So I was on YouTube. I had nothing. Had probably a billion things to do, but I was just wandering aimlessly around the internet, waiting for my 400i to come out. And so I watched a clip, and I have to say, I so loved it. I loved that she gave him shit back, because it was perfect. Because he's fucking Bill Burr, right? He's Bill Burr, and it was great. I fucking watched that clip over and over again, just because. And there wasn't even like visuals; it was just a still picture. But I listened to it like a couple times in a row, just because it was so. Because he was still himself, and she fucking swung right back at him, and that was beautiful to see. That was like, a meeting of personalities, a meeting of senses of humor. It was great. I loved it. And what's funny is, well, to clarify, when I looked it up, apparently Reddit does not like Nia. But to be fair, those threads were like 4 to 6 to 7 years ago, so I don't know if it's changed anytime recently. Though I will say that a lot of the people who are apparently big fans of what happened to Bill Burr after he got married seem to be those who appreciate the probably or the possibly. Like, when I said Bill Burr would say something, and your mind would throw the next statement into being something horribly racist, something horribly sexist. A lot of the comments that I read were the people who wanted it to be that way, right? Not so much people who appreciated the fact that it wasn't. Let's say it that way. But yeah, I loved that. I loved hearing that because I was so curious, right? Because if you have a strong personality, and you're cognizant of its impact on those around you, you always, or you tend, well, depending on your own personality. Okay, me personally, I have a strong personality, which means that I tend to appreciate mentally strong women, let's say, that I don't have to, because I can overwhelm those who don't have sort of the, I don't want to say, how do I say this? I appreciate those who can swing back. Let's say it that way. Like I tell jokes, I pick on people. That's kind of how I am. My personality tends to be to say something that makes you hate the fact that you're laughing at it. That's the most. I love that reaction because you're laughing because it's funny and you hate that you're laughing, and that just brings me joy, right? This brings joy. But like it's actually funny because a couple years ago when I lived at another place, my roommate at the time apparently tried out my sense of humor and made someone cry. So you have to be careful. What's interesting is that a lot of people don't realize how quiet I am when I first meet someone. Because I have to learn. If you have a personality like mine, you have to learn, the limits of the person. What can you pick at? What can you not pick at? How will they react? How serious will they take it? What are the boundaries? What are the limits? What are you have to learn these things. You have to sort of mentally build a construct of the reactionary patterns to know, where's the line? How far can you go? What can you say without actually upsetting them? And that's, I do that by default almost. And I can tell that there are people who have attempted to emulate my style of humor, who have not taken the necessary precautionary steps prior to that, and are receiving a negative reaction because of that. With that being said, because that is my sense of humor, I appreciate those who are willing to swing back the same way she does. So you don't have to moderate it quite as much. You always do. You always have to moderate it. You do. Like, it's sort of it's a shock humor, right? It doesn't matter who you're talking to. 99%, unless it's like your best friend of 20 years who, you've done the dumbest of dumb shit with, who already knows, all of your dark secrets and has been there while they were becoming the secrets. You have to moderate it to the person. It's fine, right? That's human interaction. It's normal. That's how it works, right? I'm not saying that should not be a thing, because it should. That's called respecting other people, respecting, their personalities, what they've been through, etc., etc. That's fine. I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. And it's interesting to catalog people and coworkers and peers and friends and their, reaction patterns and how they function and all that stuff. So it's just, it's interesting. So I'm now at home, so this is about the time frame of if this worked. If it didn't, I'm going to be somewhat annoyed because I actually started talking. But this is about the time frame of how long these videos or snippets would be. And again, it's just mostly going to be called What I Did to Entertain Myself on the Drive Home, or some variant of that, probably shorter, because it's what it is. So yeah, I'll see if this works and decide whether or not it's worth uploading for absolutely no reason. Yay. As I park. Okay. Bye.